City Council. It's September the 3rd, and we are running a little bit late. It's 7:07 p.m. due to our previous show cause hearing meeting. We'll start with this meeting with the invocation and a pledge of allegiance given by none other than Dan Zander.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Thank you for this wonderful event we have this evening. And we just wanted to pray for our council so it can be smooth as possible. So we just we love you, Lord. We love you dearly. And let this meeting go through this evening. In thy name we pray. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson DeMonico.
Here.
Councilperson Lucido.
Here.
Councilperson Kleinfeld.
Here.
Councilperson Owens. Here. Mayor Pixley.
Here. I would entertain a motion, please, for approval of the agenda with the one suggestion from the city manager to delete one item.
Madam Mayor, the Tax Reversion Committee didn't get a chance to meet because some of the staff was out. So actually, I would make a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of item C under unfinished business and removal of item F under new business.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion on either of those? Please call the roll.
Councilperson Kleinfeld.
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido.
Yes.
Councilperson Owens.
Yes.
Mayor Pixley.
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico.
Yes.
Our next item is the hearing of the public. Does anyone wish to be heard tonight? Big crowds. All right. Please state your name.
Christine Tillman, and thank you for these 3 minutes. Well, when I was here last time, you know I make a lot of sayings about the Constitution because I know so much about it, and I heard somebody on the dais there chuckling, and I started to let my feelings get hurt, but I know better. That's the big problem now. Our legislators from the police on up to the president don't know a word of the Constitution, even though they've all sworn an oath under Amendment 14, Section 3, that I will uphold the words of the Constitution and I will not engage in rebellion, insurrection, and giving aid and comfort to the enemy. So when they're doing all these sanctuary cities and sanctuary states and sanctuary streets, I be screaming bloody murder, because that's a violation of Article 3, Section 3. That's the treason and war clause. It clearly say that's giving aid and comfort to the enemy is treason and war. But they doing it and getting away with it. The Constitution say it's the states and the people that do immigration and take care of all their welfare and stuff. But they getting away with taking it from the American citizen. So at this late in the game, I hear a lot of laughing about the Constitution. But I didn't hear any Friday when I went to the meeting with Andy Levin, where it was my first debate with him and Larson. You didn't hear no, I held that Constitution handbook up and brought the House down. It was a few people there from Eastpointe. They didn't like the new Social Security plan. They think it's not good. And I'm looking out for my people in Eastpointe. I didn't like that plan either. It's a senior citizen, another mess with the senior citizen where they're going to be actually taking more money and telling you a story, another story. You looking over here while they're doing something else over there. And so I just told them in no uncertain terms, the Constitution is not going to allow you to do this. Not to mention they already owe 3 dividend checks. They owe one for Social Security for spending that money that belonged to the senior citizens without giving them their money back with interest. Billions. They owe for Medicare. Millions of dollars a day have been stolen from Medicare. It's their duty to get that blasted money back, and since we didn't use it, send it back, and it has nothing to do with your regular check. And on the immigration, I already told them that. when I had to go up
You have
against
30
Congress.
seconds.
Okay, when I had to go up against Congress and Obama, they went down on that one in the appeals court and in Supreme Court. So I put my little $10 trillion in there, and the judge said, well, I'm not going to do that. But she went down on a Supreme Court level. So that's why I stick with the Constitution. The main thing I'm mad, I told Andy.
Your time is up.
Thank you, dear. I will do that
Thank
next
you,
time.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone? Mr. Curley?
Good evening, Harvey Curley, Eastpointe, Michigan. Well, our 21st annual Cruise and Gratiot is over. Once again, we had a great time and a lot of cooperation. Our attendance was down a little bit because it rained twice, and then on Saturday, they threatened rain all day long, so the attendance wasn't there. But we had approximately 80,000 people that came in, and the spotlight shined on our city, and that's the main reason why we do it. We don't do it for ourselves. We do it for the citizens and for the merchants here in the city of Eastpointe. We will have one next year. It'll be our 22nd annual, and as we do each year, so that the people know that the city doesn't put this on for nothing, that we pay our bills. So I want to present you a check for $19,338.40. $19,338.40. So that covers the 6 days. One other thing I want to talk about real quick. The buses are going to be going up and down the residential streets very soon, aren't they? Picking up our kids from our schools. And the cars don't stop when they're supposed to. When that stop sign comes out, when those red lights come on, the cars still don't stop. And one day, one of our kids are going to get killed. And I don't know what kind of fine somebody gets. And I don't know who to talk to about, but I would love, I would love to see that fine tripled, at least tripled. So, they may regret paying a triple amount, but they'll never forget if they kill a child. So, folks, if you see somebody going down the street, call me. I'm not working now, and if they bypass the bus once on a particular street, they're going to do it again, aren't they? And we're going to catch them. We're going to stop them. And we're going to stand in front of that car, and we're going to call the police, right? And we're going to have them put in jail, and we're going to have them understand what they're doing. So God bless Eastpointe, and particularly God bless the kids. And Randy, I'm going to give you this. Don't spend it in one place.
Does anyone else wish to be heard? Mr. Creech?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. My name is Harvey Creech, resident of Eastpointe. I know the last time I was here, I asked a question of a value that was put at Totter trash cans, and it was marked, paid for by the parks. Well, I received a letter back from Mr. Marucci, and this is how it reads. It says, I am writing to verify the information that I gave you in the meeting of the past Wednesday morning regarding funding of the Gratiot Avenue trash cans. You were correct, and the trash cans were charged to the parks budget. Specifically, account 101-758-728, around $6,189.09 was done the fiscal year of 16 and 17. To go back through these and to do as it may or what it is, as I said before too, people have been asking questions, and we hear we don't have money, or the money's not there. Well, apparently, I'm not going to say anybody misuses money in this city, but when we ask for money and it's not there, and it's put in a different project form, or something is wrong. I don't think we asked for this much. The same thing, I asked to get our parks, going on 3 years now, the same thing, our shuffleboards. They got them started. They started them last week. We got the base painted, and then over there at Kennedy itself, they went out and
They striped it and they lined it. This is no disrespect to the gentleman who did it, but it took him 3 days to get it painted, striped, and correct, because he did it, and he had to come back and do it again. Then lines were in the wrong place, he had to do it again. And Spindler's not done it all. So we wasted another great weekend that we could have been playing shuffleboard and other things, as I said before, too. Our timing is very incorrect. I don't know exactly who pays or what pays. I know I'm not allowed to go to the parks anymore because of it. I have to make an appointment to the rest of the stuff, so it's left up to the council, to the city manager, to the mayor, to the people that have the position to do things like that.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I said, it just something this simple to take this long, to me, it's unjustified. These people from the city, we owe them a lot more than that. Please, let's see if we can give it to them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard at this time? Anyone else? Seeing none, the first hearing of the public is closed. We have no scheduled hearings. I'm sorry, we'll move on to approval of the minutes, and we'll start with the special meeting of July 23rd, 2019. Do we have a motion, please?
Sure, Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve the special meeting minutes, July 23rd, 2019.
Support.
Move and support. Please call the roll.
Councilperson DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilperson Owens,
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Mayor Pixley,
Yes.
and Councilperson Lucido.
Abstain.
And the second one is the regular meeting of August the 20th, 2019.
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of August 20th, 2019.
Support.
Move and support. Please call the roll.
Councilperson DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilperson Owens,
Yes.
Mayor Pixley,
Abstain.
Councilperson Lucido,
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld.
Yes.
We have no scheduled hearings. We'll move on to unfinished business, and we'll start with the authorization for contract amendment with AEW for the Donald Street Water Main Reconstruction Project, the lead, the lead water service line. Mr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Cotton, did
members
you
of the
want to do
City
this
Council.
one? I don't see Joe's here.
We last talked about this, and there were several questions on the table. The Donald Street water line has been postponed for a number of reasons, one of which is this question of what about the lead service lines given the new state legislation? The two questions were there was an appeal or a lawsuit regarding that matter, and by a number of cities, large cities in southeast Michigan, that lawsuit failed. And the question was whether there would be an appeal or not, and I think it was a short appeal period of something like 21 days. So if it's not been exhausted, it's close. Perhaps Attorney Albright knows. And the second was to verify the city's charter language in relation to ownership of the service lines. And Attorney Albright and myself, and you have a copy of the charter language, reviewed this matter again, and we find that the language appears to be clear on its face that the lines are owned by the city, although this is unusual in my experience. In other communities, it seems the language is different here. So those two points of information are put before you, as well as the fact that the cost could be up to $7,750. This is not an unreasonable. This is not an unreasonable amount. AEW is doing the rest of the design, and in order to not lose another construction window, it might be appropriate to move forward at this time. It could always be stopped, shouldn't be needed, should there be an appeal. But I believe that this work would not be unused. Eventually, the work will be important and useful to whoever the contractor or contractors are. Attorney Albright, is there anything you'd like to add?
Nothing further other than I'm not aware of, as of today's date, an appeal being filed. And then with regard to our discussion as to the ownership of that particular line, under the city ordinance, it does define water connections as that being that part of the piping from the easement up to the premises of the property. And of course, the premises includes the water meter as well. So based on our reading, it would appear And as the former city manager pointed out, he thought that was some odd language. The council may wish to amend that language at some point in the future, but as it presently states, as it's currently drafted, water connection does include that whole area.
Does that go back to the original city charter?
I'm not aware if it goes back that far.
And I'm going to vote in favor of this tonight, but I do want to point out, I wasn't sure that I was entirely convinced about the service line ownership thing, but the portion of 46-20 given to us, the last sentence, which isn't one of the ones underlined, does say connection fees shall not be less than the cost of materials, installation, and overhead attributable to such installations. Because my concern about this is the cost to the road projects and how much less we're going to be able to do if we're replacing everyone's private lines. But, I mean, looking at that, I know we charge if a meter's going to be put in or something like that. I would think that the service lines probably fall under that, but I would just like to look at that for financial purposes.
I really think that this is probably going to be one of the most costly things the city is going to be confronted with. And what scares me more than anything is Detroit, because Detroit's bills come through GLEWA, and we're going to end up paying for a lot of that as well. So I've been really pushing on all the legislators, and nobody seems to want to tackle this. But in the meantime, I think we have to do the engineering just to see what's going to happen. And this is just for the engineering. It certainly isn't for the whole total project. Mr. Pangori assures me that many of these can be done trenchless, but if we have to go into private property and then repair the lawns, this is going to be astronomical in the cost to the city of Eastpointe.
And if we need to clarify our ordinances on how we're going to manage that, I mean, we have something on the agenda today about the thoroughfares behind businesses. So, I mean, I think that would be something worth looking at too.
So I would agree with you, though, Mr. Kleinfeld. I think this is something that we need to approve at this time because engineering takes a long time to complete.
And Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to authorize the interim city manager to execute a contract amendment with Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick for additional design services on the Donald Street water main replacement project in the amount not to exceed $7,750.
Support?
Move with support. Please call the roll.
Councilperson Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico,
Yes.
Mayor Pixley,
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido,
Yes.
Councilperson Owens.
Yes.
Our next item on the agenda is a discussion on the medical marijuana ordinances. And maybe, Mr. Albright, do you want to discuss this since you've been working on this for a while?
I'd be happy to, Madam Mayor. Members of council, what is before the council this evening for consideration and discussion is essentially the end product of the city council's review, city administration's review, and also the planning commission's review regarding the different language that should go into a proposed medical marijuana facilities ordinance. That is before the council this evening. If the council votes to approve this language, the planning commission has previously voted to table further discussion on this particular issue. But if the council votes this evening to schedule the matter for a public hearing before the planning commission, that would be the next step in the process. It would go for a public hearing in front of the planning commission. The planning commission would then have the opportunity to either take no action or make a recommendation in favor of the proposed ordinance or not recommend approval. After that, the issue would then come back before the city council for 2 readings.
And for council, and for those of you that might be in the audience, there is a zone map. Much of this ordinance relates to different zones. So we do have zone maps. They are available. They are on the internet. But I made sure that council each got a copy of that tonight because much of this relates to a zone.
And this was scheduled to be at the last meeting, but I believe Mayor Pixley
Was on vacation.
wanted to be part of the discussion, given the importance of and the interest of this particular issue.
And I just want to clarify, the planning commission can also make a recommendation with modifications to the ordinance, can't they?
Of course.
I did have a question, maybe I'm missing it. Is the membership of the administrative committee that would approve the licensure, is that not included in the ordinance?
Says the committee shall consist of the city manager or designee, the city clerk, and the building official shall approve or deny a permit application within 90 days. That language is there. And
So since the city manager and the city clerk are one and the same, could council consider the idea of making the director of public safety the third person in that panel?
Sounds like a good idea.
I thought we discussed it last
We
time.
did discuss it, and we
And-
thought we'd put the economic development director, who we
That's
don't
right.
even have. So I would think that once the ordinance is done and the decision is made by the administrative committee, that the economic development director is the one that would, any applicants, tell them where that is and carry through the ordinance as is written.
So, my recommendation would be, because we don't have an economic development director right now, is to put in there either the building department or the economic development director, where it could be either one.
I thought the building department was already in there.
Well, they are, but I don't know if we need both of them.
That's why I'm saying I would rather have,
That's what I'm saying, so like, if we don't have an economic development director, once this is all done, I would rather get moving on it to have the building department do it. So I'd rather put it in there where either one of them could be a representative for that position.
so you don't want the director of public safety to be involved on the
No, I do
administrative
think, no, I
committee?
do agree, I think the director of public safety should be involved. I think we could add,
So you would have a 4-member panel?
yes.
Oh, actually, I thought, since we were saying city clerk and city manager are the same person, I thought it was then, what we were just agreeing on was city manager designee, director of public safety, and then the building or economic development director. And that'd be
I-
3 people.
I'd be fine with that.
That's
I would be fine
Yeah.
with that.
I wouldn't recommend a 4-member,
No.
just because of, in the
I think
event
the
there would be a
3-member,
tie. Either 3-member or 5-member.
right.
The-
By the way, it's Economic Development Manager, it's the position title.
With that correction.
So I also had a concern about bringing it forward for council review. I know that was Mr. DeMonico's suggestion. I think that once the administration makes the decision, that the council would have to approve the decision, but I don't think the council should have the right. If it does come back before for a council review, then I think it needs to go back to the administrative thing, much as things with the DDA or other authorities.
Mr. Albright, this is going to be a special land use, so it's going to have to go in front of the planning commission.
Yes.
And then with any special land use, after planning says yes, doesn't it come to council also?
Back to the city council.
So it already, so we don't really need that. I wouldn't say we necessarily need that section in there, because it's already going to come back with the special land use to council.
I think that makes sense. It's just which vehicle does it make it to the council table?
Okay.
In the land use, I mean, it's articulated what reasons something could be turned down, so I think that's important too.
Right, yes, because then we would have an actual direct reason to not approve something if that was the case.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking that was going to be, I guess, before that point then, when they would go forward with that. So we know who the 3 applicants are. Say there's 3 for the dispensary licenses. and then they'd go forward with their special land use and site plans. We just approve that recommendation, and then they go forward with that.
I don't know if that's, I mean, in my opinion, I don't know if it's necessary to approve that.
I guess I would want to know what the level of review would be at that point.
I just for, so I don't foresee us ever changing it, but then we'll see the results of that committee. Just do, once over look at everything that the committee comes up with, make sure nothing was missing, say, all right, go forward. But I guess if
I have a.
would not like to,
I
I
have a-
just thought extra skin in the game for us so that we can say we also
I have a
reviewed
little
them.
bit of concern about that, just because of the membership of the council, because it varies. It's going to vary in the future. So that's my concern, and I would hope that everybody on the planning commission would be all up to date with rules and regs and the ordinance and so forth. And I think if the council were to disagree, then it would have to go back to the planning commission again.
Well, that's not really my concern. My concern is that, well, I think our administration is, I mean, I trust their opinion on who they're gonna recommend going forward to coming up with the special land use application to the planning commission, so.
I would hope. I mean,
Right.
we have to have that for everything in the city, so. All right.
And under number 4, the factors considering for granting the permit, I was looking at number 12, community involvement including but not limited to charitable contributions and involvement. I wanted to add language to the city of Eastpointe. So they will have community involvement and did charitable contributions and involvement to the city of Eastpointe on 12. And then add 15, current resident of Eastpointe, business owner.
I do not like number 12 at all. I would not mind community involvement, but charitable contributions and involvement, I think, is just opening the door for problems.
I agree with that.
Absolutely do not like that at all. That's like buying a permit.
Well, even if you take that out and put community involvement to the city of Eastpointe.
I don't think that should be a consideration. I disagree with community involvement.
I think I'm neutral to community involvement, but charitable contributions does read as
It's got to go.
if you pay some money, you'll get more consideration.
Buying a permit.
So was that
So-
3 people saying we're striking it then, or we're amending it to
We're amending it.
what,
Community involvement to the
Ms.
city of
Owens.
Eastpointe, take out but not limited to charitable contributions and involvement.
okay. Do we want language saying not including charitable contributions, so it's clear?
No, just,
Because the way it reads right now is community involvement including but not limited to charitable contributions and involvement.
I want to completely eliminate charitable contributions
That's what I,
and
that's what I,
involvement.
that's what I was, so you want community involvement gone completely?
Right.
No, we want to keep community involvement
I have a,
Community involvement, period.
Period.
to the city of Eastpointe, though.
That's fine too, community involvement in the city of Eastpointe.
Within the city of
In the city,
Eastpointe.
okay.
That's,
Make it extra clear. Okay.
So how do you guys feel about what I added, number 15?
so Mr. Albright, I'm not Mr. Albright, Mr. Blum, you had some viewpoints on that. On that point,
On which point, I'm sorry?
on considerations for granting a permit.
Okay. Is it the one I'm thinking?
Yes.
We had a conversation, yeah. And I shot you an email. I was suggesting that there somehow be a limitation on basically almost like a nepotism clause where like members of council could not be a party to this, where they would personally benefit from legislation they're passing. Is that the one you're referencing?
Correct.
Okay. And something where, you know, a council person to the fourth degree, whatever degree you want to pick, cannot apply for one of these permits or even be a party to a business that's a part of this.
This is, in going to the mayor's meeting and hearing people talk about this, they were truthfully expecting that every single city in this state of Michigan is probably going to get sued one way or the other. And they were discussing different ways that you could limit the lawsuits, and one of them was related to permits for people that have a connection to council or employees.
Yeah, city employees, yeah.
So there is a verbal, I gave it to you this morning. Did you review that? Maybe you could read it.
Do we have clauses like that for any other type of permits or anything? Because I think we just have the Code of Ethics requiring disclosure of any of those types of
Right.
conflicts.
So even if you were to put into it the Code of Ethics was developed to eliminate conflicts,
Well, part of it was with administration involved in the selection. I mean, if I applied for a permit and I go before the committee, and then I get preferential treatment because they know me, you know, that kind of thing. It just basically prohibit council and employees from being a party to any of this.
I feel the ethics ordinance would already essentially address this, as opposed to including it.
well, and maybe we could just insert something related to the ethics ordinance within it.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's going to be administration that is going to be deciding
Right.
who's going to get these licensures. I think maybe if we're going to add something to that, it should be specific to the administration, if they are to remove, you know, related to the people applying that. I wouldn't say that they can't be that they can't open here, but that administrative person should be replaced with someone else. They shouldn't be part of the decision-making process if they have a direct relationship. But I don't think that we should say, well, this person can't open a business here because of a relationship with an employee in the city, as long as that employee isn't part of the decision-making process.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying?
So I guess like a disclosure and a recusal clause of some sort.
Right, something like that.
Which would make more sense to me, because the granting, you know, when you grant a permit, that's still an operation outside of the city, versus like employees not being able to get hired if there's a direct relationship. But I would be happy to include language that sort of protects that process to make sure that there's no nepotism and I would actually say it probably should exist for all levels of review. Whether that could be imposed on planning commission, the administrative team, and then, you know, council once we review the land use agreement.
I'll agree with that.
I would agree with that. You
Yeah,
want to write it up?
So language indicating that an individual cannot participate in any decision-making processes?
Right.
Because, of course, the current ethics code, which is applicable to all city representatives, city officials, city employees, that's broad enough, and that covers any city business.
I just would like to see a referral to it as somewhere, not necessarily inclusive, but referred to the Code of Ethics and the,
Do we want that as part of the factors contained in
I
4A?
would like to see it in that area.
That's fine. What number would that be?
16, if the proposed 15 is approved.
In our ethics ordinance, I don't believe it requires recusal in a situation where there's a conflict. I think it just requires disclosure. Am I incorrect on that?
Right.
So maybe this should require that the person recuse themselves from, whatever capacity they would be acting in.
Yeah, it might not be super specific. I pulled it up while we were, the prohibited conduct says preferential treatment. City officials and employees shall not use their official positions to secure, request, or grant any privileges, exemptions, advantages, contracts, or preferential treatment for themselves, their immediate family members, or others.
I think that he's passing out our ethics ordinance under disclosure, which is section 2-101. I would think that probably everything in that with disclosures, with a disclosure statement. I would just like to see something related to that included in that one list of qualifications.
I can come up with some language.
Okay.
Anything else?
Just to go back, because Ms. Owens had brought up about giving maybe extra consideration for a resident of City of Eastpointe, or I don't know if you guys were interested in adding that.
A resident and a business owner who have invested over the years in Eastpointe. I think that should be
Giving them
consideration.
extra consideration because of their previous.
Involvement in the city.
I do think if we were to add that, which I would be fine with that as a consideration, actually under 12, where we removed including charitable contributions, including residency and something along those lines. Because I think that still falls under the guise of community involvement.
Okay,
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
So residency and business owners who have
Previous, or business owners, yeah.
investors.
Investors in the city,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that enough direction?
So we have community involvement in the city of Eastpointe, comma, residency, comma, and business ownership.
Business ownership,
No.
investors, or,
No, I would say residency.
well,
Leave it at
people
residency.
who, I really would like to see people who've invested in Eastpointe over all these years have some type of input in the city, residents and the business owners. Just for instance, the guy who owns East Commons and the Big Boy, they've been here for years, not saying they're interested in this. I'm just giving an example. They've been here for years, they invested in our city and things like that, so.
Perhaps, Rich, it would make sense to have language indicating that they are residentially or commercially domiciled in Eastpointe.
My only concern now, like thinking about it a little bit more, is that I don't want someone to be like, okay, we're gonna have a lot of people applying for these applications. I don't want them to be like, okay, well, now I know this is gonna be in the ordinance, so I'm gonna go open up a business here so I get better treatment, and then that business is gonna close a month after they get this license. So that's my concern.
I have a concern with that too, because we all know what happened when the judge position opened up. We had all kinds of attorneys moving into Eastpointe 6 months before, buying a house, not actually living here, so they could run for judge. And I can see that same thing happening.
Right, so I guess, a resident,
It depends on how you word anything. So when I say investment, meaning over 10 years or something like that. Just put in,
But if they already have a business,
we're not saying we're gonna give them the permit if they have a business here. It's just something that we're looking at in consideration. If they have invested in the last couple of years in Eastpointe,
Yeah,
why
these-
not give them,
Yeah, these are just factors, and we're certainly not making a determination, putting certain businesses over other businesses.
Right.
This is just simply saying community involvement in the city of Eastpointe, including residency and business operations.
Okay, that's fine then.
And that'll be looked into, because once they go to administration, and they're gonna see how long they invested in Eastpointe anyway.
Yeah.
And I guess because we're worried about how strongly the factors will weigh, on the previous page, I don't know if we should loosen that language, just to make it clear, like the committee, as hereafter provided, may consider none, some, or all of the following factors.
I think that's a great idea.
Just to make sure there's an understanding that these aren't boxes that have to be ticked off, they're just factors for them to consider.
So may also consider all, some, or none of the following?
I think that would be fine.
Got it.
Some of these, you absolutely would not want to give a permit to somebody with a couple of these. Oh, such as related to taxes, related to previous problems, the financial ability to purchase and maintain, and those kinds of things. It would seem to me that many of those things that we've listed as factors should be really considered. So when you're saying none, that scares me.
Yeah, I didn't like none.
I mean, that was just a general change. If there wanted to be some determinative factors in there that are these must be, or
Well-
these disqualify someone.
Once again, I go back to I trust our administration that with some of these, they're gonna really actually consider them for sure. Like Ms. Pixley said, some of them are pretty important, and we're not saying that they don't have, we're just saying that they don't have to take
I
these.
just don't like the word none. I would say some or all.
Take none off, yeah.
We could scrap none. That's fine by me.
All right.
God, I'm sounding like your mother.
Oh, and Rich, if you wouldn't mind putting page numbers on.
Yes. I will do so.
I had another consideration under section 10-231, and I can't tell you what page it is, under general operational requirements. Item A, a medical marijuana facility must obtain a state license before they can open their facility for business. I would like to have it read, a medical marijuana facility must obtain a state license before they can apply.
I believe they can't get the state license until they've done an application with the city, but they can get pre-qualified.
So maybe just add in there that they should be pre-qualified and then obtain the license before they open their facility.
Is that true that they can't get their,
Well, they have to have their state license before they can open up a facility or business.
Before they can open,
And that's what that
Yes.
says. Medical, you're looking, Madam Mayor, members of council, you're looking under section 10-231.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it says a medical marijuana facility must obtain a state license before they can open their facility or business.
Ms. Pixley wanted them to have their license before they even apply, and that's what we're saying. We don't know if they can obtain a license before they even apply to open one in the city. That was the question, right?
Can you just follow up on that, Rich, and see whether they have to have an application or a permit from an individual city before they can apply? I mean, before they can get a state license. I thought they had to get a state license first before they applied to a local city.
There was one other one I wanted to change under 10-231, general operational requirements. And that's, for D, for the signs shall comply with the city sign ordinance. I think that we should not allow any neon lights on the signage. That's just my opinion. And in our ordinance right now, you can, so.
I like that idea.
And no signs maybe with the, like, marijuana leaf. I don't know if that's already not allowed either, but,
Well, there probably isn't anything in there right now on that.
well, no, I mean, I don't know if that's state law. I don't know, probably not, because I think I've seen it.
Yeah, no, it's not state. Some cities actually require it.
Okay.
Under E, I've been told that I haven't gone shopping for medical marijuana, but I've been told that you can't get into many of the buildings unless you show your medical marijuana card first. So I thought perhaps you might put that under a 4. No one,
Either put it on 4 or just maybe even add something into 3. No one under the age of 18 years is permitted on their premises.
that's where I wanted to put it, right after that. I don't care where you put it, I just think that you need to have the card before you get in. I don't think you should be told that you can go across the street where they sell all the paraphernalia and you can get your card by standing in line and waiting for the doctor to come and visit you.
I think you have to go in and get approved to get the card.
You can't go in and purchase it before you have the medical marijuana card. But most of these places are telling people to go across the street where they sell this stuff and where the doctor visits and can give you a card.
I do think if you add language like that, it should specify, because I think most facilities have a difference between like a vestibule where they enter the building first, that get checked, and then before they get to the service area or whatever you would call it. So I don't know if you have any language in mind for that or seen anything, but I would make that clear.
Okay.
We don't talk at all about TCH products. So are we going to develop another ordinance or anything to include or discuss the products?
I mean, to me, the products all fall underneath this, so
Are you hoping that they're all going to be sold in a medical marijuana place, facility, store?
That's the only place they would legally be able to be sold once this ordinance is passed.
But I think we just need to state that someplace. Unless you want to do a separate ordinance
Yeah, if necessary, we can
for
always do
TCH
we
products.
can always do a separate ordinance for that.
Okay.
I don't know what page it's on, but I think it says something about if you have a felony or misdemeanor with drugs, you can't get a permit. Is that in there, Rich?
Yeah, let me see.
I don't know what state it was, but the people who were convicted of marijuana and they were freed from it, since it's now legal, were able to have their own businesses. And I would hate to criminalize somebody that now something is legal and say they can't have a business in it, when now they just got freed from a crime that's now legal, so.
Yeah, that, well, going back to the factors provision under 4A4, where we talk about in determining whether to grant a permit to an applicant, the committee, as hereinafter provided, may also consider all or some of the following, and then 4, whether the applicant has been indicted for, charged with, arrested for, or convicted of, pled guilty or nolo contendere to any criminal offense under the laws of any jurisdiction, either felony or misdemeanor, not including traffic violations, regardless of whether the offense has been expunged, pardoned, or reversed on appeal or otherwise.
Yeah, once again, I would depend on administration to look at those circumstances and to weigh out whether or not if it should be important.
Well, the permit from the state also identifies, don't they have to go through a security check with the state?
I believe that's correct. I think even regardless of what we did, I think the state has a standard for it. And in terms of whether other products are, I know there was just mention of a separate ordinance. I guess I would have to look at how marijuana, it's in our definition of terms, but refers to the health code. I would have to look at that to see if it includes those type of products, because I don't know offhand what that definition is.
And I think there's various percentages, and at some point in time, I think Rich is right, that we probably need to do a separate ordinance.
Going back to number 4 on the factors, what you just read. Yes. Even though we said that the administration has the power to go over this and see what they want to keep or what they don't want to keep, we did take out not including traffic violations. So why couldn't we put in there not including marijuana violations or something like that?
Council could.
I would oppose that personally. I don't think, because it's a separate issue whether or not someone thinks marijuana is okay versus whether or not they ignored the law. And I think if someone's getting a permit, the people involved in that operation need to have not displayed a history of non-compliance with the law, even though
It's
the view on
federal law, but we're still doing it, so.
the view on whether or not it's acceptable, I just disagree with that. I would rather that consideration remain.
Well, it could be, again, discussion with that committee on if it was one violation of having it when they were 18 and now they're 55 years old or something like that.
Right, and that's something they can, with the committee, they can explain.
Well, and that's why I think the state is the one that's going to be reviewing all that before they can give a permit.
But if they were
hopefully.
illegally selling marijuana for 10 years, I don't think that they should be able to. You know what I'm saying? There's so many variances in it, so.
I might be willing to get rid of the regardless of whether the offense has been expunged, pardoned, reversed, or appealed or otherwise, because that seems a little.
Well, I have a silly question. If it was expunged, how would we even know about it? Would we even, or is that a silly question? That's not is that a silly question?
I mean,
The state knows.
Yeah, the state knows, but it shouldn't be used against that person for purposes of something like this.
Okay. So then we're saying removing expunged.
That's why I think it's important for the Director of Public Safety to be on the committee.
Yeah, it was a lot of times when something is expunged, law enforcement still has access to it, but for purposes of employers or something like that, you're not supposed to receive any type of penalty or be put in detriment because of that if it's actually expunged.
So we're crossing out that end of that sentence then.
All right, moving on. Anything else?
No, I think that's all I have.
So going back to who's gonna be on the board, we said we said the building.
Building or economic development.
Okay,
Depending, either one could be on the board.
and there's just one.
The city clerk and the public safety director, or the city manager.
No, yeah, we
City
said-
manager and the public safety director.
Public safety director, okay, sounds good.
Right?
Or the-
Oh,
Those members again, so we have city manager or designee,
yep.
Yep.
city clerk or,
No, we
Director.
eliminate the city clerk.
okay, so director of public safety.
Yes.
And then the building official or the economic director,
Director or
Manager.
manager.
manager, thank you.
Sure, Madam Mayor, then I'd like to motion to schedule this for a public hearing at the October 3rd meeting with the changes that we just discussed, and have the Planning Commission report back with a recommendation.
Support?
I still had one question. Can we just go back to buffer districts and separation standards, the very last page, where it says a licensee shall not operate a medical marijuana facility within the buffer districts. The council may reduce the regulations of the residential buffer.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's gonna take me a minute to find.
What?
It was under,
Second page from the end of the packet. for this
Second
agenda
page
item.
from the end, under buffer districts and separation standards.
Here.
A buffer district is further defined as the area within 500 feet or 100 feet, blah, blah, blah. And on the next page, it says, the council may reduce the regulations of the residential buffer if all of the following are found. I have a concern with council's ability to change the buffer zone.
It
I would
seemed,
think if anything, it'd be zoning.
yeah, it seems to me like that zoning or planning would make what, because if it's not coming to us until the last approval,
I think I think it has to be a joint decision between planning and council.
Well, if it was part of the special land use request, then planning's gonna have to approve it, and
Then
then,
it
then
come back to
council would
council.
council.
And that's my thing, is
So maybe,
this says just council, and I think it should
maybe
be.
change that to, say they can make the special request to the planning commission during their special land use or something along that lines.
So Rich, if you could develop some kind of wording with that, so it's just, not just council, because I think that's it's planning commission reviewed by council.
Thank you, will do.
Okay, so you wanted to make a motion?
Sure, and including that that last change.
I was looking, I want, Madam Mayor, excuse me, I want the 100 feet from a residential property. We couldn't make that higher. I think 100 feet is not.
Well, the issue we had, if you remember at our joint meeting, if we made it higher, there wasn't anywhere in the city for them to really open. Remember, we had the zoning maps with the green circles on there?
I wasn't at that meeting.
Oh, okay, yes, it would limit it, but you have the one with the, okay. That was why, I think with the joint meeting, we discussed doing the 100 feet variance, because that's,
They would still have to get, if they were that close, Rich, would they be required to get local residents' permission for the facility?
It does say that presently. That's under Roman numeral 3.
Okay. Okay. We need a motion.
These are like example.
Yeah, the motion was made and supported.
A motion, please?
I think
we
Councilmember
had a
DeMonico made
motion
it.
and support, I believe.
Sorry.
We had a motion and support already.
You want to repeat your motion?
Sure, yeah, Madam Mayor, I'll motion that we schedule a public hearing for October 3rd at the Planning Commission, and they report back with recommendation on this ordinance as amended tonight.
October the 3rd is not the regular meeting.
I think it is.
October 5th is. They
Well,
meet on Thursday.
which,
October 3rd.
thought it was the 3rd. but-
Is
I
it,
have October 3rd, yeah.
is it Thursday?
Yes, yeah, October 1st is a Tuesday, that's,
Okay.
Third.
All right, we have support? Please call the roll.
Councilperson DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido,
yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld,
yes.
Councilperson Owens,
No.
Mayor Pixley.
Yes. So, Rich, do you have time to get a notice in the paper for a public hearing? Doesn't it require 3 weeks?
We would still be able to make it, I believe.
You think
Brian, do
you,
we have enough? Yeah, we have enough time to, does city administration have enough time to get the notice out? Yeah, but city administration has enough time, yeah. Linda's telling me yes.
okay. All right. I have to find my agenda and all this.
I think next is the city manager.
These are locations that already.
All right, let's move on to reports from administration, and we'll start with our interim city manager, Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, Mayor Pixley. I have 11 items, given that.
Wait, maybe we ought to wait for everybody to pick up and leave. What are they picking up?
I have the zoning ordinance over there for people to look at,
Okay.
the zoning map. That's available online, of course, as well.
Yeah.
We should, have them give you a copy of this,
Sir, you're sitting in the back. Come and take one of those vacant seats. All right, Mr. Cotton.
Thank you. Like I said, I have 11 or 12 items. I think I'll make it quick or truncate, depending on whether you have any questions. Let's go along. As we have for the last several months, we start with our Assistant City Manager and Deputy City Clerk. Status report on ranked choice voting. Mr.
All right.
Fairbrother.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cotton, Madam Mayor, and members of council. I previously thought I would have a longer report for you today. However, we had to seek some revisions on the voter education outreach, who we are working with, Fair Vote. So I'm going to have to table that one. I'd like to give a thank you to Attorney Albright and our city assessor, who make up the election commission. We'll be holding an election commission meeting tomorrow regarding the approval of the ballot style. So we'll be formally approving the ballot style and the way it's laid out, which I have given you guys all a copy of, I think on a few different occasions. No changes have been made. I think it looks really nice. Beyond that, let's see here. I've been working with attorney Angela Gabel quite frequently. She's been doing a great job. We're constantly working on new revisions to Michigan election law and the voter intent and normalization chart. So I just want to give a quick thank you to her as well. Beyond that, there's not too many updates, and I know time is short, so I'll be succinct. So thank you.
Are you on track pertaining to the timetable?
Yeah, you know, at the very beginning of this, we started and we developed a timeline. And as of right now, we are on track. Our September 1st deadline for the Universal RCV tabulator has passed, and we're looking to potentially go before the State Board of Canvassers sometime next week. So we're excited to potentially get formally approved from the state of Michigan for the use of our election system, which will be tabulating the results of this election.
Thank you.
Could you, do you still have the dates available for the public meetings?
So we have, that's actually the report that I am going to have to give to you at a future meeting. The communications plan for outreach with Fair Vote, we're still working on that, on the intricate details, and I don't want to give you information that could change, even if it's going to change tomorrow. So
I'm just concerned because the planning meeting would be the same day.
on October 3rd? Okay. Yeah, you know, we're looking to hold some town halls on October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So that we're going to have a plethora of different dates when we're going to have voter outreach. We recognize that there will be some conflicts with other events in the city. However, they are looking like they're going to be set in stone fairly soon.
We intend to do promos at some of the other events.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, you know, the planning commission uses this hall, so.
Understood. The next item I'm actually going to ask our finance director to report on when he speaks, and that is the rest of the story pertaining to the Gratiot trash cans. There's more information there that I know he has at his fingertips or is knowledgeable about. I want to start with single lot special assessments. What the heck is that, do you wish to know? I hope you wish to know. It is a way to pay for the lead service lines in a way that doesn't burden the rest of the water customers. It is a concept that's used for certain special projects elsewhere. I don't know if they've ever been used for lead service lines. So thankfully, Attorney Albright is going to be looking into that, which will answer some of your earlier questions. Next item, the animal control ordinance will be on your next agenda, amendments to it. The principal reasons are to try to establish regulations pertaining to backyard breeding, which should not and is not permitted, but we need to flesh that out some more. Secondly, the next council meeting, I will be in Pennsylvania. This is something that was planned before I got the call from Mayor Pro Tem. So you'll have an acting city manager that evening, and I haven't spoken to Randy yet, so I don't know if it'll be Randy or not. I just surprised him. Anyway, more to follow on that. Your city manager applications are out, and we have 15 that have come in so far, the advertisement, and 2 for the economic development manager so far. We'll be doing, and I'm getting phone calls on both, so we'll be doing some outreach here shortly. And when I say that, I also am acquainted with, we were just talking about it, the conflict of the Code of Ethics. And I anticipated I did not have a conflict because I work for GovHR, who you awarded the contract to. But when I gave a close reading to this, I see that I need to file a disclosure statement in Section 2-101. Although I don't receive any additional compensation associated with this at all, it is something that I want to have on the record, and Linda is getting me the disclosure statement forms. I also saw some interesting other language here that I had not realized, Section 299 definitions, and I think it's good to go over this briefly because these things get passed and new people come like myself, and it's always helpful. And so we talked about this at the staff meeting today as well. At the bottom of definitions, the term includes all officials, employees of the city, whether or not they receive compensation, including consultants and persons who serve on advisory boards and commissions. That is extremely broad. I'm not saying wrongly broad, but more broad than I would have expected. So that's something to keep in mind. Under C, the next column, C1, I'm on page 12, it indicates that no official shall engage in employment, et cetera, that produces a direct conflict. That's understood. But it goes on to say, or which would create the appearance of impropriety. So that's a higher standard that I wanted to call to everyone's attention. On page 13, and I'm just hitting the highlights here, at the bottom of the left column, E, political activity, no one can use city time or property for political benefit, which is kind of understood, but it's nice to see in black and white. And then on Section 2-101, which I just mentioned, before a contract is awarded by you, the vendor shall file a disclosure statement. So technically, I am 3 or 4 weeks, whatever the time is, beyond that, and I beg your pardon, and we'll rectify that. Next item, the Administrative Order 18, I think you got on your desk. And this is something that is very important to everyone that serves the city of Eastpointe, I might say. It's important for 2 reasons. One, it's important that employees who you hire for their expertise and experience and knowledge not have undue political influence outside of the normal chain of command, which you've determined via your charter and the hiring of the city manager and his hiring of the leadership team. That's one thing that's important here, and it's in the charter, and it's just restated here, and there's nothing new, although I did add some emphasis. So then I add at the bottom of the first page, the following policy is provided in order to provide to achieve a sense of order and to achieve the following principles. So I don't want to read every word, but The first bullet says, if anyone needs information, we are an open book. The city's resources are transparent, and you as council of all people should be able to have whatever information you have and whatever inquiry you deserve to make. However, the top of the next page, it is important that the supervisor advise the city manager accordingly, and that's to avoid confusion and to expand the information, to be more transparent, so everyone knows who's on first, or there's, no one knows less confusion is better than more confusion, obviously. So that's the burden is on the leadership team to do that. The next bullet, if a council member requests or directs an employee, staff member shall respond affirmatively, meaning hopefully politely, I hear you, yet respectfully suggest the council member take it up with the city manager and immediately thereafter advise their supervisor. So the city manager and the leadership team work as a team, and one way or another, together, that information will get to the council in the best fashion possible, as quickly as possible. And you, of course, can hold the city manager responsible for if that doesn't happen. The next bullet, if a member contacts the city employee requesting information and they're not able, the employee will refer the council member to the employee's supervisor. Something's the same, but it wasn't a direction, it was just a request that they couldn't do. The next one is significant in that it's so much, it's been lightened up quite a bit. And Mayor Pro Tem Kleinfeld, when he contacted me, he said that we needed to figure this out. So what I did, so the next bullet used to say that an employee could not discuss personnel, staffing, labor relations, grievances, collective bargaining, civil service matter. Well, that's pretty much everything somehow. So that sounds like a gag order. Well, that's not the intent. So this has been limited to only the employee will not discuss grievances and collective bargaining. And I think we can all appreciate how there's a state law and a local structure for dealing with labor relations, and how things could get pretty crazy if that was encouraged or tolerated. So nevertheless, if that happens, the employee supervisor should be advised, and supervisor will inform the city manager, because people are people, but we all need to know what's going on. But hopefully you'll be the wiser because of it, and we don't need union members knocking on your doors during labor contracts. I don't think we do anyway. It's certainly not going to make it easier or better for the community, and that's the intent of all these structures that are in place. And the last one is the non-disparagement. No department head or employee is engaged in any discussion or make a comment that is disparaging or disrespectful. I lightened that up a little bit to try to make sure that something that's said in jest is not going to be misinterpreted. So the last thing is, it used to say that violation of these directives will result in disciplinary action up to and including termination, which is really not the point of this. It's not to discharge people. So it just simply notes now if repeated infractions occur. So, obviously everyone will learn as we go along, and if there's a continuous problem, well, then there should be disciplinary action, but otherwise not. So I put that before you, not because it's for you to vote on or discuss in any meaningful way, but I certainly would view because it's an administrative order, but I would view your input as very vital to seeing whether we got close to the bullseye or not, and what some of the intent of council or desires of council might have been. I hope you can see that I've tried to apply a balanced approach here.
Sounds good to me.
That's what my wife said when I proposed.
Anybody got any comments?
Well, it's pretty solid then, I hope.
Any comments?
No, it looks good to me.
I'll make one comment. I do think it would be, because the worry that I ever heard from employees was that this had been issued so many times and has the termination language in it that they read into that. I think you could strike up to and including termination of employment if repeated infractions occurred, just because the next sentence is the level of discipline administered will depend on the nature of the violations. But it is certainly much better.
Yeah, you could take the word termination of employment out. Just keep disciplinary actions.
Why not?
Well, and the disciplinary action has termination in it. so-
Exactly, yes, yeah. But then it doesn't sound as harsh, at least.
Just because it's been issued over and over again. I think like 4 times in the last 2 years or so, 3 times or something. And so
Yeah.
Good suggestion.
I don't have any other problem with that.
All right.
You have other things on your list?
Moving on, boy. Christmas is coming. I know that because I got an invitation from the chamber that I'll pass around to you, or is available
For the auction.
for the auction, but also because we have kind of one of those odd years where Christmas falls in the middle of the week, and, you know, there's days off before and then whatever. So Thursday, the 26th, the the village hall, city hall would normally be open, and it's suggested that the city hall, not be open. But I say that just because a lot of people are going to be taking time off anyway. It'll be a skeleton crew at best. And in our years past, there was one occasion where city was open, and I'm told hardly anyone was here. So I'm going to suggest that be a good approach to maximize everyone's time and energy and save some energy in the building being totally on, but I wanted to get your input. And I might be hitting you cold at this point, so I can come back and talk about this next time we meet, but I wanted to see, have you start thinking about it.
I think it would be easier if you bring it up at the next council meeting and bring a calendar with you with possibilities of how you'd like to.
I'll write it up as an agenda item as well. Thank you. I'm going to skip several items and go right to Comcast and trash cans. Comcast, it's time for another franchise agreement, and this will be on your next agenda. I wanted to let you know that there's a clock is ticking, and I haven't heard any complaints about Comcast as a franchisee for cable, but if there are, anyone watching, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll proceed with this in due course. The last item, then, it's actually in Randy's list. Oh, no, one more. Our police department, thank you, especially our deputy chief reminded everyone to lock your cars. We've had a rash of thefts from vehicles, an amazing number of thefts, and it's just because someone can go up and down the street. If your car is unlocked, wow, hey, it's trick or treat. So please don't leave your car locked. Thank you.
Any questions for the city manager?
I didn't have any questions, but I just had one thing I wanted to bring up. I thought the street markings were looking very nice. The streets look very
Oh,
nice.
they look so good.
Wanted to bring that up. And then also, just wanted to congratulate the DPW too. There was an accident near Andaries where a stop sign was knocked down, and before breakfast was even finished, there was already a mobile stop sign up at the corner there. So that was pretty neat. I thought they did a very good, quick job there.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to Mr. Blum.
Okay, Madam Mayor and Council. There were a few emails I saw before this meeting that came out. I actually was off today and off tomorrow. I came in just for this meeting, so if you didn't get a response, you probably have one in your email by now. Trash cans, the rest of the story. Those were purchased to place along Gratiot to help enhance that area because there was a lot of trash. It was a joint effort between the city and Smart. So while the city paid a little over $6,000 for the cans, Smart reimbursed us for 50% of that cost. As far as why it was charged into the parks budget, at that point in time, the only other spot to charge it was the citywide 299 department, and that was already over budget, so we said, well, we're just not going to charge any more there, and Parks had a little bit of room, so we placed it there. The reality is, general fund is general fund, and whether it was charged to 299 or police or parks really didn't matter. It was an expenditure that was going to happen. But the net cost to the city was a little over $3,000 for those cans. They were not ever intended for the parks. They were always intended for Gratiot. And that's the only additional information I have on that. One of the questions that did come out from Councilperson DeMonico was the spending at the police department. He had noticed a lot of activity with various projects. I handed out today before the meeting a list of all the projects that were actually budgeted. They do total $101,000 worth of activity there, but each one of these are in the budget, and unless you see something that doesn't fit one of these categories, that's what the money was intended for. So just, you can take a look at it and see what was going on there. We did get notice that the city will be receiving the CAFR Award, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report Award with the GFOA. We will get that scheduled for an official presentation at a later council date, but we finally got that one. So they like our audited financials and how it's presented. And that's all I have.
Any questions? Well, let's move on to Mr. Albright.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have anything to report this evening, other than to say the council is in receipt of our monthly status report. I do apologize for the length. There will be, or has been, several of those files have been closed, so it'll be much shorter next month. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thought the mayor was asking about show cause hearings, so.
Pardon?
Thought you were asking about more show cause hearings.
Thank you.
Nope. All right, let's move on to new business. Our first item is the introduction and the first reading of ordinance number 1175 to amend Chapter 38, Article 3, sidewalks and driveway approaches.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to introduce and give first reading to ordinance number 1175 for repair and maintenance of sidewalks, driveway approaches, and alleys, and schedule the ordinance for second reading and adoption at City Council's September 17th regular meeting.
Support.
Move and support. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilperson Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido,
Yes.
Councilperson Owens,
Yes.
Mayor Pixley,
Yes.
and Councilperson DeMonico.
Yes.
Our next item is the revised property purchase proposal for 21439 Kelly Road, which is a church. Mr. Blum, do you want to speak about this?
Yes, as council remembers, they accepted a purchase offer on this property for $240,000 contingent on an inspection. It took a while to get the inspection going, mainly because we couldn't get the gas turned back on at the building. And then once the gas was on and the inspection was completed, there was a laundry list of repairs that needed to be done, which the city assumed there would be. But the one big item was there was a section of the building that was boiler heat, and the boiler was missing. So the church came back, requested a lower purchase price. The tax reversion committee thought that it was a little bit too low, and they countered with what's before you tonight, which is $10,000 below the original offer. And the tax reversion committee was in consensus that that was an equitable offer based on the missing boiler.
Any further questions?
Now, we had the original offer, it was them and it was another one, correct? What was the offer that they offered us?
This was a $240,000 cash offer,
And the other one was what?
$265 on a land contract.
Yeah, 5% interest. Yeah, that's what I had voted, saying I thought the other option was a better deal, but now I guess we're in this, but.
That's what I'm thinking now, since we're going back, we might as well.
Yeah, because
Well,
we're.
I mean, the 265 offer, they would have come back with a lower offer too, once they found out the boiler was missing. We didn't know it was missing either when we put it on the market, so.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, we probably would have made like 47,000 more on the.
But it would have been
Other
under a
offer.
land contract,
Sure.
correct?
Then we would have made even more if we would have got the property back.
Yeah.
All right, do we have a motion on this?
I think
Madam Mayor,
they'll do
I'm-
very well with the
Sorry.
property, though. Sorry.
Madam Mayor, I motion to accept the revised offer from New Bride Ministry to purchase the property at 21439 Kelly for $230,000 with all other terms remaining the same, and authorize the interim city manager to sign the revised purchase agreement.
Support.
Move and support. Please call the roll.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
No.
Item C is the approval of the special event application for trunk or treat. Anybody here from the funeral? All right, I'll entertain a motion, please.
Madam Mayor, I motion to approve the special event application for a trunk or treat event on Sunday, October 27th, 2019, at Verheiden Funeral Home from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m.
Support.
We have support. Please call the roll.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Our next item is authorization for a second contract modification with Italia, and this one is for miscellaneous street repair project. Do we have a motion, please?
Madam
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to authorize a modification of the contract with Italia Construction Incorporated to extend the contract to June 30th, 2020 for additional amount of $655,000 to provide miscellaneous concrete repair at various locations and authorize the interim city manager to execute all necessary documents.
Support.
Move and support. Please call the roll.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
And Councilperson Owens?
Yes.
And one more contract modification. This is item E. It's for a contract modification with Italia for concrete pavement repair work.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve a contract modification with Italia Construction Incorporated for an additional amount of $386,041 and extend the contract to June 30th to provide concrete pavement repair in Area 3 and also in Area 4 to the extent funds are available in the contract, and authorize the interim city manager to execute all necessary documents.
Support.
Move to support. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Item F has been deleted from the agenda. Item G is the approval of the trunk line maintenance contract with the Michigan Department of Transportation. Do we have a motion, please?
Sure, Madam Mayor, I'll motion we approve MDOT contract number 2019-0674 for trunk line maintenance for the period of October 1, 2019 to September 30, 2024. Authorize Jose Abraham, DPW Director and Street Administrator, to execute all necessary documents.
Support.
Move to support. Please call the roll.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Owens?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Our next item is finally the bid award for the water wagon. Sarah, do you want to make a motion, or?
Madam Mayor, I motion to award the bid to purchase of a 2019 water wagon to the low bidder Wolverine Power Systems of Wixom, Michigan, in the amount of $7,120, and authorize the interim city manager to execute all necessary documents.
Support.
Move and support. I just picked on Sarah, I'm sorry. But I think there isn't any one of us sitting up here that have not asked for water for our
Trees
adopted
and flower
gardens.
beds and-
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Item I is the review of the alternative ways to accept tax-deductible donations. And Mr. Kleinfeld, I don't know whether you want to talk about this first and then have Mr. Albright, or?
Yes, I'll say a few things. This, I think the more I've done a little bit of research and talked to different people in administration, this kind of has evolved from originally thinking we absolutely needed a nonprofit formed for a at least that was my understanding. I now understand that the city can accept, earmark, and expend funds on behalf of our commissions, giving tax deductible receipts. There are a few things that, while it's earmarked, I think the city still has a little more authority over those funds, which I'm going to go back at least to the Arts Commission and ask how they feel about the whole situation. Because I think there's the idea that they want some autonomy, but whether or not that mixes well with going through the city at the same time is a conversation I've had with Mr. Cotton. That said, I know that at least the Arts Commission, and I'm not sure about any other commissions at this time, do want to be able to hit the ground running with raising funds for specific activities they have in mind. And so I would just like to, with the information that we have now, direct administration and particularly finance to put together a process so that they can start accepting funds, earmarking them, and providing receipts for those commissions that receive donations.
I think there is a great deal of money available for grants, particularly related to the arts, and I think you'd get a better response in many respects if you go through the city and also maybe through an adjoining city for some of the applications. So there are, I can think right offhand of about 12 different grants that are available now for various purposes, everything from murals to art in the park and so forth. So there's huge amount, and I think you do better with the city.
You're saying you think it wouldn't affect us trying to get grants, is what you're saying, Madam Mayor?
No.
As it being part of
Well,
the city?
I think there are some grants that are available to entities associated with cities, and I think there are some that are limited to 501c3s. They won't award them to, so they're just two different avenues. And I think I know at least one other city had an ordinance and repealed it about 2 months ago, and I'm trying to find out why, because I don't know if they have problems. But I intend to learn more about the 501c3 option if it's ever necessary. But I would just like, for the time being, administration to start handling funds that are donated.
So the DDA can also apply, and so can RARE.
So, yeah, I was going to, so DDA for sure. I'd like to see us doing our own music in the plaza again. I believe our last city manager thought we couldn't accept these
And there was
donations
there
from
was
them.
absolutely no reason why we couldn't accept funds.
Right, and now Rare is handling one of the big projects that DDA has done for years, and we've always done it on donations to the
And
city. It doesn't come out of the general fund anyway.
Actually, the DDA could sponsor some of those as well, because it's well within the organization
Oh, sure.
bylaws.
Sure.
So there was only a few people that felt that it didn't, but it is within the bylaws. That's why we had the attorney come.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the DDA, when you're talking about art projects, the DDA can also fund an art project within their
District.
areas, so.
Yeah, this has been a more complicated issue to learn about than I was hoping.
Okay.
But I like your idea of, I think, number one might be the most prudent, quick option, and then if it is wildly successful, number two might make sense. Yeah.
Okay, so so did you want to come back with a plan at the next meeting?
Oh, I thought that if council's in agreement now to give direction to administration to work on that process, I think that would be enough.
Yeah, I think that's enough for right now,
That's
too.
fine.
And they'll come forward if we do need an actual ordinance change, or is that not even foreseen? Or
I would think.
I think I want him just to work on this for now. I appreciate Ryan putting together, I think it was you, Mr. Cotton, who got these letters and reached out to other communities. I appreciate that. That was a big help.
All right, let's move on to the final topic for the night, which is the City Hall canopy project. Who wants to talk about this? Nobody is raising their hand, so
I will take this one since it's a building authority, or started as a building authority project. We have been trying to get a canopy over the south employee entrance for 3 years now. Money was available in the building authority construction fund for that. It's hit some snags with our architect, and so we moved it over to AEW, and they've come back with 3 different proposals. What's happening on that particular door is it's on the south side, and the sun beats on that whole side of the building. But in the summer, that door frame warps just enough to keep the door from closing properly, which makes the building accessible at night if somebody doesn't push it tight when they're last one out the door. Additionally, it generates a lot of heat in that hallway, which is not properly air conditioned, and then affects the rest of the building. In the winter, we get snow and ice that builds up, and same thing, it can affect the latch, and the door doesn't close properly. The building authority had just shy of $21,000 available for this project. The scenarios that came in, all 3 of them are more than that, some by significant amounts. The building authority members preferred the option 2 from an aesthetic standpoint. And I believe, let me find my notes, that's the one that came in at $45,000. And so basically what we're asking is that the council authorize the funds in excess of the building authority money to come out of the general fund. There's $500,000 of capital improvement money that will be, we're closing out the capital improvement fund, moving it into general fund, and designating it for capital projects. A good chunk of that will be used for the memorial concession activity, but what is left, we would just like to request that council authorize the difference on this particular project.
So the recommendation was number 2?
Correct.
And how much would come out of, if we were to support number 2, how much would come out of the capital improvement fund?
I think it's approximately 27,000.
Let me find the numbers.
That's correct.
That one doesn't have the numbers.
And that does come far enough out that it shields the door on
Yes.
I'd assume.
Yep, they did the, study with the angle of the sun and everything. Made sure that it did come out far enough. It also then protects the sidewalk from any ice and snow in the winter. Cuts down on slip and falls.
We don't think we'll need to replace the door frame then, or was that part of
No, it actually, it works fine in the spring and the fall, and it works fine in the winter if there isn't any ice getting stuck. It's just in the summer when the sun is beating on it all day. And by the end of the day, it warps it just enough. And we've tried messing with the latch to make it close on its own. But it also, like I said, it generates a lot of heat in that hallway in the summer.
Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I motion to commit from the designated capital improvement dollars the necessary funds in excess of the available building authority funds for the installation of a canopy over the City Hall South employee entrance.
Support?
Move and support it. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
oh.
Michael?
I was just going to ask if we should have a cap on that project, because I think we know the number for option 2.
How much
But
did we set aside in the original capital improvement plan?
20,500, I believe it was.
20,563.
That came from the
That's the
building
building
authority
authority money, right?
Do you want to set a cap of 35?
Not,
10%? 10% more?
I was just going to suggest not for the project to exceed in its entirety $47,801. Because really, the building authority funds, I believe, were actually moved out of the building authority
Into the general
line.
fund?
So it doesn't really matter where.
Right.
it comes from.
They are sitting in general fund designated for this project,
Okay.
so. And this will be put out for bid if, assuming council approves the additional money, and the bid will come back, excuse me, to council for final approval.
Oh, I apologize then. Never mind if we don't have the bid.
So you just want to make.
This is just permission to basically send it out for bid with option 2, knowing the building authority can't pay for the whole
You want to
thing.
revise your,
I don't know if I need to revise my motion because it's still gonna come back to us for final approval after we get the bids.
we just have to say that we're going out to bid. You approve
Right,
it to
right,
go
yeah,
out to
that's,
bid.
because that was the recommendation from AEW, was that this was approximately how much it was gonna cost, so.
Okay, so you have a motion and support. Please call the roll.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Move on to payroll and bills.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve payment of the bills in the amount of $5,278,066.79.
Support.
Move and support. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Owens?
Yes.
Move on to the second hearing of the public. Does anyone wish to be heard? Mr. Zander.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and my name is Dan Zander. Just wanted to let you know, last week, everything went really well at the Memorial Park, and we had a first football game last week on Thursday, and we lost like 8 for Eastpointe and 12 for Charter Park against them, and then it was a tough one. And this coming Friday will be on September the 6th at 7 o'clock at the Memorial Field. We're playing Clausen at 7 o'clock p.m. on Friday. So if you like to come out and join the fun, please do so. If you can, that's fine. And if you win this one, it's going to be an excellent time. So I appreciate it very much. And then that's all I have. So be careful going home and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. In the back.
Good evening, Mayor Pixley, council members, Gary Sasek, 23796 Roxana Avenue, Eastpointe, chairperson of the Parks Commission, and I'm here to give you an update on Roxana Park. And I'm very pleased to say that Michigan Recreational Construction has been doing an incredible job at the park. All of the equipment is in. They were finishing up the forming. They're planning on putting the webbing down tomorrow. And if all goes well, their plan is they will have the wood chips and everything blowing in Friday, and the park will be ready for the residents to start using. We've had incredible chatter on the Eastpointe residents page in regards to what's going on at the park. It's amazing how many people live right there and didn't know anything about it, even though we had a special meeting. We had a special meeting, we invited them, we kind of tried to keep them up. If you get a chance, I'd really like you to go past the park and just see. Again, Michigan Recreational Construction has been doing an awesome job. They've been very diligent about what they're doing, and I've been there periodically, anywhere from 3 to 4 times a day. I've been taking photos of everything that's been going on so that we will have a track record of the old empty swing set and the slide to what we have by this weekend. So thank you very much.
Ma'am?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Christine Tillman. Well, I went over ranked choice in my mind over and over, but I can't find the constitutional. And don't think now, because I don't have a law degree, that I don't know. Because I know after all these 30 years that most attorneys don't know the Constitution either. In some states, it's not even in the bar for the exam. And even the Supreme Courts, they make all these mistakes. Because I do this all the time, but I can't find ranked choice to be constitutional. And then it's personal, too. When you're moving votes around, I'm done with that, so I don't like it. As I explained at the meeting, it looks, there are a lot of euphemisms I can say about it, and you've all heard me tell you why I don't like it. Well, let's move on now to what I had to do there with the meeting I went to with Andy and what's his name, Mr. Larson. They were talking about, all these different things, and they're forgetting they're not even looking at stuff themselves. We had a bus right here in Michigan, 412 Muslim, billions of dollars. They did all this opiate trade. Nobody's saying a word but Bloomberg. He came here and left 10 million. One of my old buddies used to hang out with. And so I think people need to look at more. And I told Andy under no uncertain term, he got to represent all the people, the citizens of Eastpointe and Macomb County. You can't just pick out the ones who are not citizens like he always does. He go to all the ICE, I can't stand ICE meetings. He hangs out with Sheeta and Omar and stuff. And I told him, you just getting in too deep with them, and you got to stop the squad from calling our American citizens all these racial names. Everybody got the same, the civil rights under number 6, 1964, and equal protection, due process, and privileges and immunities. Everybody. Can no foreigners come here and go to calling all the Americans all these names, and you got I told Andy, you ain't fit to be there if you're not going to stand up for everybody. You got to. You can't just focus on one group of people because they're illegal. In fact, when you know the Constitution, they're not supposed to do that anyway. That's for us, the people. I wish you guys would learn what they taught us in elementary school about all this stuff.
You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, we learned all this in elementary school, and then around the mid-50s, they took it all out because they was getting ready to do the New World Order with open borders, and that's why you can't use the word citizenship. They won't let you. So that's why I'm here, and I may not win, but at least I'll get a chance to teach you guys what to ask these people. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir?
Name's Larry Edwards, Eastpointe, Michigan, residents. My background is being part of safety. I happened to notice, actually leaving the meeting of the last council meeting of earlier part of the month, that the sign that's there, that used to be there on Gratiot and 9 Mile there, right on almost to the corner of the walkway there, it's not there any longer. And I'm not sure if there was intentionally or what happened to it. The sign that said in regards to the blind people. Or do we not have any more blind people, or what's the case? I don't know. But I did happen to notice it. Also, fall is approaching us, and many of the trees that's on people's curves, from the curve of the street and between the sidewalk, my resident in particular, and the resident that lives next door to me, whose trees is coming connected with on my side of the property, need to be trimmed. Something need to be done to them because a lot of them can't be done. Those particular trees, nothing can be done during fall. So I've been holding back on it till the approach of fall, in which is coming upon us, and so. I definitely want to see something done this term around because the last time a tree on my block that had been reported for some time, it had to actually fall on my wife's car before they come out and did anything. And as soon as it fell on, they got the report it fell on it, they was there immediately. But anything regarding that, and there was other trees that had problems too and everything. So now there's a tree that hits the top of my top of my car as well as in front of my windshield every time I pull in and out. And whatever, because the time that I've been there, 16, going on 16 years or plus, and what have you, I haven't seen nothing done to the trees whatsoever. And constantly talking about putting up trees. Don't take care of the ones you got. And what have you. So the other thing is, Mayor, you had made mention about a zone map, but that you showed a zone map, but you didn't state what it was for. So I don't understand what is the map for. And then in regards to the marijuana thing, I think that we ought to have the first choice. Eastpointe residents ought to have the first choice for consideration, as well as in sentiments to be in favor for the Eastpointe residents as opposed to outsiders, so money can more or less circulate and remain in the city, as opposed to first joining, considering outsiders. So I think there need to be possibly looked at some language in regard to that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jakubiec.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, Administration. A week ago Sunday, there was an accident over on Kelly near 9 Mile, and the car cracked the telephone pole in half and kept going. Unbelievable. Anyway, DTE was called out. So my neighbor told me about it, so I went down and I got an opportunity to talk to some of the fellows from DTE. And I wanted to ask them a question about the tree across the street from us, and it had grown into the lines. And they told me it's not bad enough yet. Anyway, the fellow that I was talking with, we got on the subject of marijuana. And he said, your city better find out who's growing marijuana in your city. He says, because we've been to a number of places where they reported no power. We walk in the backyard, and the service line from the house to the telephone pole is completely burned through. He says these people have jury-rigged the electrical, and they're drawing way more current than their house is set up for. We need to find out who these people are and go in and inspect the homes, because otherwise we're looking at a loss of property and possibly even life. And he said he was at a meeting with the president, and they also were discussing marijuana. And he said he had an opportunity to talk to the governor of Colorado. And they talked about marijuana. And the governor said, I wish I would have never let them put that on the ballot. He says, what has happened to Denver, Colorado is terrible. I don't want that to happen here. So let's move slowly. We have no background as to what's going to happen here. I am totally against recreation. I don't have a problem with medical, but let's move slowly and find out what we're up against. But please, if there's some way that you can put a letter into the water bill to get people to come forward so we can inspect their homes before there is a loss of life. Thank you.
Mr. Creech.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I'd like to thank Gary and the Recreation Committee for the job they're doing on the parks. I guess maybe, but I still don't understand. Right now, we're getting new equipment put in a park, and we have so much money needed on our old parks. Our fences are literally falling off our parks. I don't understand this anymore. We haven't put money back into our old parks, and yet we're building new playgrounds in parks that we didn't have before. We have a problem here. I don't know exactly what it is. I've been fighting for 2 years to get our parks, our old parks, put back in perspective. Now we're spending this kind of money on park programs, which is great. But what are we gonna do with our old parks? I've been working for the last week alone, the gentleman over there that's supposed to be putting our shuffleboards back together, he's been working hard. He's been painting and rust and stuff. He had to do one of them 3 times. I don't know anymore, as I said. I fought, and I'll keep fighting, but I said in our direction that we're going, the Parks Department, when I go say them the same thing about it, I have to go through the Parks Department. The Parks Department has to go through the Recreation Board, has to go through the City Council, and it comes back, and right now we're on hold. Now Memorial's on hold. The refreshment stand is on hold. There's a gate totally missing. There's no gate at all by the refreshment stand. I was over there for the last game, and they put 4, excuse me for saying it was a joke. They put 4 horses or anything you want to say by the refreshment stand. Our park system, I said, we're supposed to be working on it. We're not working on it. I think we're losing ground instead of gaining ground. We're not working on our old stuff, and yet we're putting in new works. I don't know. Maybe somebody can explain this to me. As I said, I think now that we have a Parks Department or a Recreation, but we're going backwards instead of forwards. We're not gaining ground, we're losing ground. As I said, when it comes to that, and like right here again too, a typical example. We took parks money and put it into garbage cans up and down Gratiot. And yet if I ask for money, we don't have any money. Or, I don't know. Maybe I'll just keep going in the direction I'm going. Maybe I'll keep talking to, excuse me for saying this, Sarah, we've talked before, and we'll talk again. And Michael, and Cardi, and Monique. As I said, I'll just keep talking, because it seems to me I'm talking to somebody except for myself. I'll keep fighting and I'm going in the direction I'm going in. Right now, it took us all summer for our shuffleboards and the rest of the stuff, and we still haven't got them done yet. I'm still getting them painted, and I'm still getting the details put on them, and I still haven't got the equipment at the parks. We still haven't got lockers to put the stuff in, and yet we've got new playground equipment going up, which, excuse me for saying this, I do thank you, because you're doing a heck of a job. I understand. And the commission, but I'm going to say, let's fix up what we had. Let's put that back together so we can use it. We've got parks out there that we're not using because we can't use them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gary, did you want to give an explanation, or?
I'd like to address it a little bit because I know that during the hearing of the public council and the mayor did not respond to concerns. In regards to Memorial Field and the gate, the particular area that was opened up, I'm sorry, I should come up there, I guess. The particular area that was opened up was totally not a barrier-free area, and there were major concerns about it. The school system did say that if we opened that up, they would make sure that they had somebody there to keep people from coming in and out, without paying at the ticket booth and that. So it is a temporary fix. We understand that there were issues earlier in the year. Again, this is a systemic problem that's been around for 15 or 20 years. It's not going to be corrected in a year. We have council that's been really wonderful at trying to help us find ways to make improvements. We're making wonderful progress. We're looking at phase 2. We're looking at phase 3s. We're looking at things we can do at our lesser parks. We're not going to be able to fix everything overnight. And Mr. Creech, everybody is making a concerted effort to deal with this, but you have to give us time. It can't be fixed. And I know you've got other complaints that are legitimate because we've had some of those.
But you're talking to the council.
I'm sorry. So there are some concerns about some of the maintenance not being done appropriately, but we're also making inroads there too. And we are seeing improvements. So again, in reality, this is not a problem that's going to be fixed overnight because it didn't happen overnight. And again, as a representative of the Parks Commission, I appreciate everything you're doing with us to help make this a better place for all of our residents. Thank you.
Hannah.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. I just want to say, I think you all just, I don't truly believe we're going to benefit from the marijuana long-term, 5 years, 3 years. I don't truly believe we're going to benefit. And I believe it's going to cause more problems than we already have right now. And one of the problems that we're having, when this gentleman spoke, I know many of you all do not come out into the neighborhood besides the area that you live in. But I get around a lot in this city. And what he said about that currency is accurate. But city council can't take care of that. That's for the police department and DTE. This is serious. In the areas where you think things are not happening, they're happening. So I think you all need to double check, recheck, whatever it may be. The city of Eastpointe future will not benefit from that marijuana. I say this once and I say this twice. I know the city of Detroit has improved and is thriving. And everything that the city of Detroit has, it looks like the city of Eastpointe wants. But will we benefit? We 5.1 mile square radius. We're not a big city. We cannot handle a lot of things that other cities have. You have to keep that in mind as you move forward. The money and the revenue that you're going to get off that marijuana, is it going to be worth it? Is it going to be worth it? And if it's not going to be worth it, you all need to reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gladney. Mr. DeHunt.
John DeHunt, Eastpointe resident. I wanted to tag on to something that former Mayor Curley said about the school buses. People drive like jerks, and somebody's going to get killed. But I also have to say, I have been behind a school bus or two that did not put its stop sign out. So somebody needs to talk to somebody maybe at the school system. That also goes to propriety of pedestrians in the street. Our streets are not meant to be walked down the middle of. And unfortunately, we have a lot of kids, and I hate to say it, adults too, walking down the middle of the street. And I made the mistake of putting something on that villainous Eastpointe residents group, and I got pilloried because I had the nerve of saying that somebody should not be walking down the middle of the street. It is a danger. It's jaywalking. So, you know, I don't know what to do about that, but to former Mayor Curley's point, it is a dangerous thing with these school buses and our pedestrians in general. Moving off that, we're 2 months away from an election. And we are in a non-partisan election. I want to reiterate that, non-partisan. The community is, as Ms. Gladney had pointed out, 5.1 miles, I believe it was. I would like to think that all of our donations to our candidates come from within that area. I would like to think that our candidates are not taking funds from individuals who have business before this council, or any commission, for that matter, currently that is not resolved. Let's make this a nice, clean, fair, simple election. Let's make it about facts. Undisputed, clean facts, something that's lost in this day and age. Truth becomes very muddied. What's true to me might not be true to somebody else. But let's kind of keep it to the black and white and to the simple things. And let's keep our residents at the forefront. Let's keep their thoughts and their concerns at the forefront, not people who are coming from outside of the community. And let's talk to the young and the old of the community. Let's talk to every consideration in this community, whether it's racial, religious, whatever you want to call it. There are a lot of residents in this city that vote. Let's not target certain groups because we think that's where we're going to get elected. Let's talk to everybody. You know, there used to be a 50-state strategy, I think it was, President Reagan had a 50 state strategy to try and win the election. Why can't we have that similar strategy? Let's talk to everybody. Let's see what everybody has to say. Let's not just go with one group over the other. That's it. I'm done.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else? Seeing none, the second hearing of the public is closed. Let's move on to mayor and council reports. And let's start with Mr. Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope everyone had a nice long weekend. The only reminder I have is September 21st, the Arts and Cultural Diversity Commission's going to have a Shamrock Day at the Children's Garden with some events. I don't know what those events actually are, but there'll be several different activities they're working on for kids to do, so just keep an eye out for that. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Lucido?
First, I'd like to take a moment to welcome all the kids, especially of Eastpointe Public Schools and South Lake Public Schools, back to school. Between last week and this week, they're all starting and getting back. And to remind everyone when they're out there to, be careful and watch, because even the kids that don't take the bus and they're walking, I mean, they goof around a lot, and so to watch out, so they get to school safely. Another thing I'd like to announce is that Wednesday, September 18th, the 8K Homeowners Association is having a candidate forum at 7 p.m. at Pleasant View Elementary School. All the candidates will have about 5 minutes, I believe, to speak that are running for city council and for the mayor election. So if you have the opportunity to come out, I encourage that you go. Also, the League of Women Voters is hosting another, and the Chamber of Commerce are hosting another candidate forum on Wednesday, September 25th from 7 to 9 p.m. And that one will take place at Eastpointe High School in the auditorium. So between the two, hopefully everyone can kind of come out, listen to all the candidates speak, and so that way you can make a nice educated decision come the November election. And the only other thing I have is I want to wish my husband a happy anniversary. We celebrated our 19th anniversary yesterday, so happy anniversary. That's all.
Ms. Owens?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for everybody for coming out, and welcome back to all the kids. My kids went back last week because they go to St. Peter's. So the parents who had to get their kids off to school last week, I think we had a good vacation that whole week last week of having our kids in school early. Also, I want to thank everybody who helped with the back to school event this Saturday. We had a pie eating contest. I was in it. I got really sick, and I didn't win, but it was really fun. We even had a wrestler come out, professional wrestlers. One of the professional wrestlers went to East Detroit and was wrestling at East Detroit, so that was really awesome. They even let me be part of the act, so that was really fun. We gave out, we still have a lot of backpacks left. We did 150 backpacks and hygiene kits, and also gave out snack bags. What we have left over will be given to a local homeless shelter, and to give back. And I think someone called me, they had tissues and detergent to give me, and I let them know the event was over Saturday. So what we're gonna do is put some things together for the seniors later on this year with those things that we didn't use on Saturday. And also, I wanna touch on the people walking in the street. We do have a lot of problems with people walking in the street, and I really am against that. But part of that is that's half of what I feel about that. But the other half is when I grew up in the city of Detroit, and my neighborhood was a neighborhood, and everybody lived in their homes and took care of their grass. And then when different elements moved in, me and my sisters, we did walk in the middle of the street. It kept us safe. It kept us safe from dogs that wasn't chained up, from strangers and things like that. And so sometimes we have to look at things a different way and not just one way. People grow up a certain way and do things a certain way, and it's still built up in me. Even when I go do things in the neighborhood, I sometimes still walk in the street. If it's a bush all the way over here, I'm not going to walk past it because a lot of people do not have their dog chained. That's from me growing up in a bad neighborhood. So what you learn as a child, and even though you move, you still have those street smarts. So everything is not what it seems. Sometimes if you see something, ask a question. Why do you do this a certain way? Why is this a certain way? Some of it is inappropriate, I agree, because I see it all the time. But some other things, you have to understand why is a group of people doing a certain thing. Maybe it's because of what they learned, and that's a part of their survival mode. So sometimes when we see different things, let's ask questions and not always assume if we're going to grow as a city, okay? And that's all I have.
Thank you. Congratulations on your event.
Thank you.
Cardi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, just would like to reiterate what Councilwoman Lucido said about the 18th and 25th. Make sure you come out and see your mayor and council candidates on the 18th at Pleasant View. The AK Homeowners Association is doing that at 7 p.m. And 25th, League of Women Voters and the Chamber at the high school. Make sure to come out to that if you can make it. And yeah, thank you for everybody that has come out. And also, again, just thank you to Mr. Fairbrother and everyone else at the city that's working on ranked choice voting. I look forward to a successful election. There are elections going on throughout the country and throughout the world that use ranked choice voting. We're not the very first. We're one of the first for sure in the state, but it is used, and it is definitely constitutional. And that was all I had, Madam Mayor, actually.
Thank you. I'd like to talk a little bit about Memorial Park. Mr. Creech, you're well aware of the fact that the city has not always been in a top-notch financial position. And at some point, you have to make decisions. We made the decisions according to the amount of money that we had. The first thing we have to do in this city, no matter where you go, no matter when you go, is to provide police, fire, and a minimal amount of administrative services, and water and sewer. Those are the requirements. And a tax collector. Those are the requirements. Parks is not included. When this city lost 50% of our income, you have to make some very tough decisions. And as the city is coming back, we made those decisions to go back and use our parks again. We combined the recreational authority, and I know you don't like it, but it was better than saying no parks and no recreation and selling what assets we had, because we had confidence in this city that we would come back and be able to do our parks. The establishment of a Parks Commission has really gone a long, long way, and you know that the only reason we're hesitating on Memorial right now is because we are waiting for the Macomb County Department of Health to approve the plans for the refreshment stand. Those things will get done. That Parks Commission is just as eager as you to fix our old parks. And this old lady is just as eager as you to fix those old parks. And that's the reason when we had money available from the Community Development Block Grant funds, the first thing we wanted to do is to reestablish a park in a neighborhood. It was a park. It has been Roxana Park for a long time. And one of the worst things in the world was to see those swing sets set up there with dilapidated swings and a slide that hasn't worked in 40 years. And if you don't think that was an old park that needed new attachment, then you need to go back and rethink your statement there. So the establishment of Roxana Park took a lot of deliberation, took a lot of work on the committee, and took a lot of design work. It is good, and it's gonna be good. And I've seen kids over there behind the fence. That is a really good park. You need neighborhood parks so kids can go and get off the streets and get outside. And that's what's gonna happen there. Memorial Park will get done. You better believe Memorial Park is gonna get done. But it's time that you put some money into some of the places in the neighborhood parks as well. Okay, I'm gonna get off my soapbox with that one. Thank you very much. But I wanna talk just a little bit about Colorado and marijuana. This is a list of all the cities, all the villages and the townships, 791 of them throughout the state of Michigan that have opted out for recreational marijuana. What does that tell you? It's like Colorado. Don't ever, ever, ever think that the state of Colorado, that every single city is allowing marijuana in their stores, in their local area. It's not happening. I happen to go to Denver frequently because I have a daughter, a son-in-law, and kids. My grandkids are there. I'm going to be going back out. I was just there 2 months ago, and I can tell you, when you go into downtown Denver, areas that used to look really good, that put some marijuana distribution sites in their locations, have gone down the tubes to the point where they have to have police around in the area. So don't think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And then you're going to say, well, Mrs. Pixley, you voted for the ordinance tonight. Yes, I voted for the ordinance. I voted for the ordinance so that you would get a public hearing at a planning commission meeting. That's why I voted for the ordinance. And let's see how many people come out, read the ordinance, and decide whether they like it or not, and give their viewpoint to the planning commission, because that's what you do. All right, I'm off my high horse on that one. I want to talk about trees. Mr. Edwards, you were talking about trees, and you think we're not going to talk about trees. Last week, 4 days ago, I was in a meeting for 3 hours talking about trees. The city has an opportunity to have 4 different grants. One of the grants is out there that we'll probably go after is for organization and assessment of the current trees. What needs to come down, what needs to stay, where do we need new trees? The second grant is for the availability of trees. We're going to go after that one too. But right now, this fall, we're going to be able to get another 100 trees. Our area, our tree canopy is only about 20% of our city, and normally it should be about 50 or 60%. So we're getting the right kind of trees, we're gonna put them in, and we got a watering can, and we're gonna water those trees so they don't die. And along with the assessment comes the ability to use a grant to bring somebody in here, to a professional person, to act as a forester, review what we have, and determine where we can make some additional things. So a lot of the tree overgrowth is relative to the type of trees that grew that shouldn't be growing. So you have to assess it first, but like other things, like our parks, this is the first time that we've had some money, but this is also the first time that Macomb County has a person up at the County Planning and Economic Development Department that is making funds available that we can use. So that's all I have to say about that today. So I'm sorry I missed last week's meeting. I was in Nova Scotia, and I was at a place called a patisserie, which is a French bakery. And please believe me, I ate every single one of those French pastries that my daughter bought. So I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Support.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Meeting's adjourned at 9:25.